So there's a lot being said nowadays about comprehensible input for learning a new language, its benefits, theory, results, and so on. And this is all very interesting and promising until you realize how difficult it is to actually put it into practice. Where can I find good quality sequencing content for me to learn a language through comprehensible input? Welcome to Fabulaudit, the full comprehensible input course to learn Spanish from nothing to native. Hello language lovers! My name is Francisco and I'm a native Spanish speaker. For those of you who don't know, comprehensible input is a concept coined by American linguist Dr. Krashen, who states that the best and most effective way to speak a second language is not to learn it, but to acquire it, through tons of comprehensible input, either written or oral. This language acquisition method tries to recreate the same conditions you had when acquiring your first language as a baby. Tons of comprehensible input, suitable for a baby or toddler with little domain of the language. 3 of the most important rules Dr. Krashen establishes are no grammar teaching, very little or ideally no translations, and no corrections. And I know this method may sound a bit shocking or different to traditional methods, but the evidence and results are quite overwhelming. Regards not correcting at all, Dr. Krashen says that corrections are not useful. They don't get stored in long-term memory and they are soon forgotten. And worst of all, they usually tend to lower the speaker's self-esteem and make them lose confidence. For example, when first acquiring your mother tongue, you receive lots of oral input from your relatives who speak around you. And even though you do not understand all of this input, your brain gradually begins to understand and to connect the words and the phrases, and eventually you're able to communicate effectively. And luckily, as great as this method may sound, there is very little or almost no good content on the internet available for the ones who, like me, got excited by Dr. Krashen's ideas and wanted to start acquiring a new language through comprehensible input. There are tons of videos on YouTube and other platforms which talk about why you should learn a language, which language learning method approach is the best, how language works, and so on. And this is all very interesting, but once you learn all the theory, where can you find good content to actually put into practice and to start learning the language through comprehensible input? That's what I faced myself. Me, for example, as a beginner German speaker, had a very hard time finding good quality sequenced content. It was everything either too boring, too difficult, and even when it was good, it usually was incomplete or disorganized. Also, language learning apps weren't good for me. They usually have a very different approach, with lots of translations and a lot of boring exercises, which result in a lot of people quitting quite early. Luckily, after months of research, I found one of the best channels to learn German in YouTube, Kathrin Shechtman. Kathrin is a native German speaker teacher who uses one of the different approaches language acquisition has. It's called story listening, and it was introduced by Japanese professor Beniko Mason. This method proposes students acquire a language exclusively by story listening, telling as many stories as possible to the students. Stories are filled with rich vocabulary and are suitable for the student's language level. The stories are, of course, told in the target language, and several comprehensible aids, such as drawings, gestures, and ultimately translations, are used to support the narration and to aid comprehension. I truly believe this is the most convenient method to learn any language, as it provides a very clear and organized path, filled with rich vocabulary and with everyday expressions. It is suitable both for absolute beginners with no previous knowledge, and also for advanced speakers who want to nail down more advanced aspects of the language. From day one, you get used to listen native Spanish words, sentences, and structures. And even the most difficult aspects of the language eventually get stored in your long-term memory. Now let me give you a small demonstration of all this I'm talking about. I'm going to tell you a very short story and you just have to sit down, relax, and listen, focusing on understanding the message. The story begins with Había una vez, which is the Spanish equivalent of once upon a time. Había una vez un rey. un rey. Su nombre era Juan. Juan es un nombre. Francisco es un nombre. John es un nombre. Peter es un nombre. Y Juan amaba 3 cosas. Amaba 3 cosas. 1, 2, 3. Primero, Juan amaba los gatos. Miau. Segundo, Juan amaba los pájaros. Pío, pío, pío. Y tercero, Juan amaba la música. As you may have already noticed, my goal is to create a full Spanish comprehensible input course, suitable for beginners and for advanced speakers. This course aims to be sequenced, complete, and organized. Each story will be carefully planned, taking into account the previous stories told and the vocabulary already introduced, avoiding unknown vocabulary or excessive repetitions. It is necessary to make a commitment when first starting to acquire a new language, because the input has to be comprehensible and interesting, ideally. However, it's very difficult to find comprehensible and interesting content when you're just starting out. For example, say I want to start learning Japanese and I'm very interested in chess-related topics. It's going to be very difficult or impossible for me to find in YouTube or any other platform chess-related content topics in Japanese which are suitable for my comprehension of the language, which is 0. That's why stories are great to start with, because they can be very catching and appealing, but they also are very comprehensible and they're suitable for absolute beginners and for people who are just starting with the language. That being said, nothing really forces us to remain attached to story listening. Other types of input can and will be provided later. For example, Spanish music or any other topic of your interest. Another extremely important aspect of this journey is written input. Reading is an extremely powerful tool and is highly encouraged from day one. However, it's very difficult to find interesting and suitable content to read. It can be quite a challenge. That's why each story will be uploaded with its corresponding written version, so as you can read it after you have listened to it. Also, I will try my best to get as many books as possible and share them with you. I will try my best to upload as many videos as possible. When acquiring a language, large amounts of input are necessary. So that's why I'll be focusing much more on quantity rather than quality, avoiding too much editing, which is very time consuming, and trying to upload as many half an hour long or so videos as possible. Everything you have to do is listen. Listen as much as you can. No extra assignments are necessary, no grammar drills, no vocabulary revisions, no. You only have to focus on listen and to listen as close and as attentively as you can. Now, a couple of disclaimers. First of all, mastering a new language is by no means an easy task. Don't believe in the ones who said that they can speak perfect Spanish after 5 days or so. Languages are complex and extensive, and they can take a lot of time to master. The second disclaimer is that in order to speak well, you will have to practice your speaking skills. Now, don't get me wrong. It is much more important the listening part than the speaking part, the input rather than the output. However, if you never practice speaking this target language, it's very difficult that you become fluent and confident enough. It is very important to lose the fear and just jump into it, and to start speaking without thinking what the others can think about you or so. You just have to start speaking. And luckily, YouTube can't help us with this, as we can't have a conversation in YouTube naturally. That's why I would strongly recommend you to either hire an online tutor, just like myself, or to find yourself a language partner. I strongly recommend the app Tandem, which connects people from all around the world who want to find a language partner and to practice their speaking and listening skills. As I said, I also provide private lessons via Zoom or similar, so let me know if you're interested. If you find this proposal interesting, let me know by showing me your support, so that I can keep on uploading as much content as possible. That being said, it's been a pleasure, and until the next time. And I wanted to say my English is not perfect, so I really can't express myself as I would love in English, which is not my mother tongue. Hasta la próxima y nos vemos en el próximo video, donde voy a hablar español. Goodbye.